1 2 1 2 sound check test 1 2. Good morning, evening, afternoon, whenever you happen to be catching this. Those of you are watching on replay, let me just check everything that we are good to go. Good morning. Hope everyone's had a great weekend. Let me get my topics up, get into this, so I can offend some people, the people who need to be offended today. I aim to do it. All right, I don't do it by accident. We do it on purpose. Here today. Let me make sure all my streams are working. By the way, I'm streaming in wherever you're watching me. I'm streaming on 6 other platforms aside from the one that you're watching. So I got LinkedIn is up, Facebook is up, Rumble is up, X is up, YouTube is up. So on YouTube, we got to always make sure we check that the stream is public. Yes, we are good on YouTube, Instagram. Good morning. TikTok, what's going on? Today, y'all see the topic. TikTok always tells me that they can't see the topic. So what we're going to talk about here today is Los Angeles's DEI fire department. That's what we're going to discuss here today. All right, I'll tell you all up front. I'm not blaming the fire department or the DEI people working in the fire department for the fires. No, can't do that. We're not going to do that, but we are going to talk about it, and I'm going to help you all I'm going to help you all understand why it matters, even though the people who work at the LA Fire Department are not the reason for the fire. All right, we can't say that. That's a ridiculous thing to say. That's not what I'm going to say. But I am going to explain to you why it matters. I'm going to explain to you why this is a subject and why it does need to be discussed, even if you are defending the DEI itself or you're defending the people who work in the LA Fire Department. We're going to get into all of that and more here today. Sorry that I started a little bit later than usual. I usually start at 8 o'clock, but I was on X. Are y'all familiar with X? Used to be known as Twitter. I was on X this morning correcting a couple people who were wrong on the internet, which I tend to do. So I had to correct a couple people who made some statements that didn't make any sense, and I had to call them out on their nonsense. And I'm going to get to, when I get off of this live, I'm going to get right back to X and pointing out the ridiculousness of some people who don't know what they're talking about. So let's get into this topic here today, which is LA's DEI Fire Department. Introduce myself first. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I've written 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks. I created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do over here is we help people. I take all the stuff that you see me doing, talking about, or that you know me for, and I help people personally apply these in their business and in their lives, all based around the frame of my background in sports, which is high-level performance, producing results, and getting the rewards that you want. All right, that's the world that I come from. That's the frame that I use with everything that I do. And if that sounds like your cup of coffee, then go over to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can learn more about working with me, what we do, how we can help people like you, whether you have a business, whether you have a team, whether you are transitioning, or you just want to step your game up, and even in the position that you're in right now. Again, that's all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. So this topic here today, we're talking about LA's DEI Fire Department. So first of all, I already told y'all this up front. Let me say it one more time. I'll probably have to say it 10 more times here today. The fire itself is not the result of who got hired and who got fired by the LA Fire Department. Okay, so we are not blaming the DEI hires who work at the LA Fire Department, which there are. We're not blaming the fires on them. That is ridiculous. Again, the fire is not the result of any one person, at least not anybody who works in the LA Fire Department. So now that I already said that, everybody heard that, right? Okay, good. The fire chief is not responsible for a fire breaking out in a forest as a general idea. We're not going to do that. Okay, so now with all that said, we understand that fires happen in California all the time, whether it's the air conditions, it's a lack of moisture in the air, if it hasn't been a lot of rain, this is more of an issue that leads to a fire than hiring women, hiring gay people, hiring minorities. We all know all of that. Okay, now that all that said, now let's get into the however. However, ladies and gentlemen, we all need to understand why this is a subject and why people are talking about this. It's not because people are racist, not because people are against or bigoted against a certain group. Maybe they are, but that's not the reason why this became a conversation. The reason this became a conversation is because most of you should understand this. And I'll explain it in detail here so all of you get it. Politics, ladies and gentlemen, is just as much about optics as it is about evidence and hard facts of a situation. Politics is about optics. The way things look matters. How things look matters. Do you remember 5 years ago when they had the George Floyd situation in Minneapolis and we all saw the clip? the 2-minute video that came out first that went viral and everybody was reacting. And I remember I was doing live streams every day, even back then. Back then, it was just Instagram and Facebook. And I was doing a live stream, and I knew that video had come out, but I didn't talk about that in my live. And a bunch of people were in my comments while I was going live saying, Dre, what do you have to say about that video? Because on the video, you could hear George Floyd saying, I can't breathe. And then we found out that he had passed away, and the video was only 2 minutes long, and everybody was all in an uproar. And one of the things that I did say, I said, I can't talk about it yet. I said this the day that it happened in 2020. I said, I need to see the full video. I cannot give a reaction to that. I know that's not the full video. It was a clip, because obviously when you see the beginning of the clip, that 2-minute clip of George Floyd, when it came out, all you saw was he was already laying on the ground. The officer was already kneeling on top of him, and he's saying, I can't breathe. I said, let me see what happened before that. Let me see what happened after that. I need to see the whole situation. And I said that then, and we all know, or actually some of you know, some of you still don't know. But when the full video came out, it made a whole lot more sense. I said that day, I said, when that clip came out, I said, that doesn't look good. I said, optically, that does not look good for the police. Optically, it doesn't look good for anyone who has any inkling in their mind that the police are against black people, or that America is against black people, or any thoughts of racism, et cetera, et cetera. I said, just based on the optics alone, it does not look good for the Minneapolis Police Department. Doesn't look good for the United States. Doesn't look good for that cop. And people are going to get really reactive about that, because most people are not going to wait as I wanted to. They're not going to wait to get the full context, and they're going to immediately react. I'm saying all that to say this: the optics of what's happening in LA with the fire department, because they just got a microscope put on them. They're being looked at through a magnifying glass now because of this situation that's happening. The optics do matter. Politics, optics matter. This is the reason why they brought all those cases against Donald Trump in 2024, because the idea was the optics of this guy having all of these convictions and having all these court cases and possibly getting convicted on a bunch of them would mean, even if he's able to run for president, there's no way that a majority of Americans would vote for him, because optically it looks so bad that there's no way you can support a guy who has all these things on his rap sheet, right? We found out that was wrong, because certain people, it doesn't affect them in the same ways. So when you focus on, and this is what's happened in the LA Fire Department, we cannot act like this is not the case. It is the case, because they have plainly stated it, that they want to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which meant hiring more women, hiring more minorities, hiring more people from the LGBTQ community. When you focus on hiring people based on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and again, the way that it is implemented, not the actual definitions of the words, because the actual definition of the words diversity, equity, and inclusion could actually be a positive thing if you went by the dictionary definition. So I want to be clear here as well, because people like to play games with the language here. The definition of diversity just means you get people from different backgrounds, which is a fair enough and fine enough idea on the surface. But how is DEI actually, and let's go to the other two letters. Equity means people basically being treated equally, and inclusion means giving everybody a chance to have a seat at the table, giving everybody a chance to get in the room. On the surface, those sound good. But when they are implemented, what does it actually mean? What does DEI actually mean? What DEI actually means, the way that it is implemented in corporate and governmental and bureaucratic structures, is we are going to exclude straight white men, and we're going to give more priority or full priority to anyone who's LGBTQ, anyone who is minority, anyone who is female. That's what DEI means. We all know that's what it means. And I don't care if the minorities, the gays, and the females may actually be good for the job. If they are, then they should be able to compete against the straight white men and just get the job regular, the same way anybody else would. Same way that someone can get a job in the NBA playing for the New York Knicks, not based on DEI, based on the fact they can play. And again, I'm using that as an example to remind you all that I come from the sports world. And in the sports world, you can't DEI your way onto a roster, maybe into the management, maybe in the front office, but on the court, on the field, you can't DEI your way into an opportunity. Actually, let me back up. Let me correct myself. You can DEI your way into an opportunity, but you can't stay if you can't play. And that's why sports is the ultimate meritocracy, is the closest thing to a meritocracy you'll ever get. And when I say sports, I mean sports on the field and on the court. I'm not talking about the coaches. I'm not talking about the management. I'm talking about the actual players. If you can't play, it doesn't matter what your background is, because we need people who can play. The way diversity works in sports is we need a kicker, we need a quarterback, we need a running back, we need a wide receiver. So we got a diversity of skill, not a diversity of color, a diversity of skill. Equity means there's a scoreboard that's going to equitably tell us what the outcome is, who's winning, who's losing. All right, the NFL playoffs are happening right now. Equity is the scoreboard is going to objectively tell us what the deal is. Who got the lead, who doesn't have the lead, who won the game, who gets to go to the next round, who lost the game. That's equity. And inclusion is you only get included if you earn your way in. All right, sports is not inclusive. Sports is exclusive. How is sports exclusive? Right now, we had NFL playoffs going on. Does every team make the playoffs? No. And if you lose a playoff game, what happens? Your season is over. So now we only got, 8 teams left? I think we got 8 teams left, right? So next week, we get the second round. Yeah, so you got my hometown, Philadelphia Eagles, are playing against who they play. I think they play whoever wins the game tonight. Then you have, I'm not going to try to list all the teams. Y'all get the point. Sports is exclusive. You lose, you're out. That's how it works. And this whole concept of inclusion means, okay, people don't get in based on being actually good. You get in based on you're just who you are. So we got to give everybody a shot. Here's the problem with giving everybody a seat at the table is that if everybody can sit at the table, that table has no value. Who wants to sit at the table that everybody can sit at? I don't. Who wants to be involved in something that everybody can get involved in? I want to be involved in stuff that not everybody can get in because that increases the value of the thing. If everybody can have a thing and everybody can do a thing, who's interested in it? Or who's interested in a girl that everybody gets access to? Nobody, or at least not most of us. All right. We want to sit at a table that not everybody can get on because that proves that you had to do something or be something exceptional to get access to that thing that not everybody can get access to. And again, I'm giving that all as a background to help you all understand where I'm coming from and why I frame things the way that I frame things. So when the LA Fire Department, and this is other entities do this as well. Many of them do it. And we're talking about the LA Fire Department here today. When you focus on bringing people into your organization based on DEI, as opposed to skill, when a problem happens, even if that problem, such as these fires happening right now, when the problem occurs, even if the problem has nothing to do with the specific people who you hired, such as this situation right here, they're going to come under the microscope anyway, because now people are noticing, people are paying attention. No one was caring about last week. Nobody cared about, or let's say 2 weeks ago, who was talking about the LA Fire Department? Only people who work in LA in the fire department. Otherwise, the rest of us didn't give a damn, didn't care, don't care who works there because it wasn't an issue. Now, because there's an issue, everyone's looking, wait a minute, these are the leaders of the fire department. How did they become the leaders of the fire department? Because it just seems odd. Just looking at it, it just seems odd. They got 3 black females who all happen to be LGBT, and they're at the head of the fire department. How is that possible? How's that possible that happened? It seems like a 1 in the 65,000 chance that could possibly happen if you're just hiring based on skill and ability. If you're just hiring based on merit, that's probably not going to happen. So people started paying attention and saying, wait a minute, how did this happen? What's going on in LA? What are their policies for hiring? People noticed the DEI thing and it became a story. So does it matter? Yes, it does. Why does it matter? Because when an emergency pops up and you're talking about people's livelihoods and their homes and literally their lives and the way that they live, whether they're living or dying, but if you live and your whole house got burned down, now we're looking at who's in charge of the organization that's supposed to keep that from happening. And people notice this, they're like, oh, wait a minute, y'all are over here playing games. Y'all over here playing games about hiring people based on their immutable characteristics and their personal identity rather than hiring people who are the most qualified for the job. Again, that doesn't mean that they're the reason for the fire, but does that mean that we can ignore it and not make it part of the conversation? No, we still got to talk about it. That's the point. So people bringing this up and saying, well, they hired these people based on DEI, and then people are trying to defend it and saying, well, y'all are racist by bringing that up, or you are bigoted against these people. No, nonsense. If these people got their positions not based on being the best, but based on a policy that says we are going to focus on hiring these type of people, that needs to be discussed. And that's what we're doing right here. So I'm going to come back to that. And I'm sure many of you have some comments on that. I'll get to that later on. What's going on, Brittany? Thank you for moderating as usual. Let's talk about this climate change conversation. Climate change. Okay, let's lay the first thing out on the table. Is the climate changing? The answer is yes. The climate is always changing. Okay, climate is always changing. Okay, so now we agree that climate change is a thing. It just depends on what you mean when you use the phrase climate change. What I found as I listen to and read more people debating the concept of climate change, it seems like it's another example of, or another existence of, 2 movies on the same screen. So in other words, people are using the same phrase climate change, but they're meaning it completely differently. So there are 2 types of climate change from what I've seen. There is the scientific climate change. Is the climate actually changing and gradually changing over time on the planet Earth? Yes, the climate is always changing. It has always been changing. Even before this was a conversation, was the climate constantly changing? The answer is yes, the climate is always changing. But there's another climate change conversation that's happening. And this is, and I'll get to the different, who is having which conversation in a second. The other climate change conversation is the political climate change conversation. The social topics climate change, the social, what do we want to call this? Let's just call it the social climate change, the political climate change. These are two different conversations. So what happens is people who are on the side of this climate change stuff and Green New Deal stuff, and generally what the left politically goes with, and there's some people on the right, but generally the left is on this climate change. They're using the frame of, and this is the tricky part, and this is the part y'all all got to catch. And this is why I tell you, when you listen to politicians and bureaucrats and people who work in these bureaucratic organizations and they make decisions and they say things publicly, these people are not dummies. Even if you disagree with them, do not think that they're not smart. They are very smart because they know how to play with words in such a way as to fool you and to talk circles around you and to manipulate you in ways that if you don't catch it, they will easily sweep you up into their vortex. So here's the thing. When they say climate change, the people who tend to lean to the left, what they'll use is the scientific frame. The scientific frame is the climate is always changing and we're getting more of these storms and we got fires and we got hurricanes. And every time there's some type of natural disaster in America, a tornado or hurricane or a fire, what do you see people saying? Oh, climate change, right? Climate change is real. Don't deny science, et cetera, et cetera. That's the frame that they use because you can't act like you don't see the fire. All right, we see the hurricane. We see the tornado. It's not like it's not happening. So that's the frame that they use to kind of open your mind to listening to what they're going to say next. Then what they do next is they slip in the political climate change, which is a different conversation. The different conversations is the political climate change, which is we're going to go to this type of energy and we're going to shut this thing down over here. You remember Kamala during the whole campaign in 2024. Are we going to ban fracking? We're not going to ban fracking. She said she was going to ban fracking. Then she said, well, during the Biden administration, we didn't ban fracking. She didn't kind of answer the question at all. One of the main reasons why she lost because people didn't know where she stood. And I think she was afraid of taking a stance because she didn't want to alienate the wrong people. But anyway, then it becomes the political climate change conversation. Here's the thing that you all need to understand about politics in the United States specifically is that any bill or law or idea that gets brought forward to the point that we know about it, those of us who aren't in politics, but we hear about stuff, by the time they bring a bill forward in Congress, or that the president may have an opportunity to sign, there are many, many other things in that bill besides the header of the bill. So whatever the bill says, this bill is about this, there's like 50 other things in the bill, often besides the main thing that gets slipped in that the public usually doesn't even know about. So this is the way that they frame it. Again, this is the tricky part, and this is where they fool people. So they'll say something like, the border bill. Remember the whole border bill thing with Kamala and Donald Trump? They went back and forth on this. So we all know that from 2021, when Biden and Harris stepped into the White House, to all the way up through most of 2024, that the border rules were being very loosely enforced. So there was a lot of immigration coming in, some of these people legal, some illegally, right? And when the election cycle started, the campaign cycle, let's say mid 2024, and you had Trump versus Biden and then Trump versus Kamala, Trump and the MAGA side started hitting heavy on the Harris and Biden campaigns about immigration. Right? You all are letting people come in and all these people are coming in illegally, et cetera, et cetera. And what Kamala's pushback was, she uses over and over and over again during her election cycle, or her campaign cycle, rather. She didn't get elected, but the campaign cycle was that, hey, we proposed a border bill that was bipartisan border bill. So we got some Republicans to go with it. We got all the Democrats to go with it. This border bill would have been the best border bill we've had in years and would have closed the border and tightened everything up, et cetera, et cetera. But this is what Kamala says. Donald Trump called his Republican friends in Congress and told them to not support the bill. And that's the reason why the bill didn't go through. So what she was trying to say is the reason this bill didn't go through is because Donald Trump stopped it from happening because he wanted to use it as a campaign tool. Now, part of that is true and part of it is not true. The part that is true is, yes, part of it was Donald Trump was playing political games. Let's not let that bill go through so we can keep hammering Harris so he can win the election. All right. So he kind of gave up a pawn so he could save his bishop. I understand that. Now, at the same time, here's another thing that Kamala wasn't telling you. Is another thing that Trump didn't even say. And he maybe didn't want to say it and also couldn't say it because you got to speak in sound bites when you're in politics. You can't give people full context, at least not in those spaces. The full context is that a lot of the money in that quote unquote border bill that was supposed to be about the border at the southern point of the United States, most of that money was not going to the border. Anybody know where most of that money was going? Put it in the comments if you know. Most of the money earmarked for that quote unquote border bill, again, that's what they called it, the border bill. Most of that money was going in a whole lot of other places. I will address all comments. I answer comments and questions after I get through all my points. So those who don't know, I answer comments and questions and get through all my points. So I will address. So if you got something to say, I will engage with you, even if you disagree with me. Just disagree with some substance and come correct. I will engage with you after I'm done. Does anybody know where the money went? Most of the money went to the country that starts with the letter U. I'm not going to say that name. Gotta be careful what countries' names I say here. The money was going to other countries. It wasn't even going to the United States. It was not going to defending the border. But, and again, this is the tricky part. So when I tell you these people are smart, even if you don't like them, don't discredit them. You can dislike somebody without discrediting them. Is that they call it the border bill so that any of you who hears about it says, okay, well, why would anyone in the United States who works for us, because remember, politicians work for us. We don't work for them. They work for us. Why would anyone who works for us not want to support a bill that is going to protect our border? Why would you not want to do that? All right, that sounds very logical and it sounds very rational. The problem is the part that they didn't tell you, which is most of the money in that bill would have went to other places that had nothing to do with the United States of America or protecting our border. And anytime that Congress puts forth a bill or any type of proposed legislation, there's often many other things inside of that bill besides, again, the header, the main thing that you hear about. And the actual name of the bill is not the border bill. It has an official name. The whole point is they slip other things into it. And this is the reason why people who understand this don't trust the government. It's specifically not even the government, because there's three branches of government. You got the president, you got the Supreme Court, and you have the legislature, which is Congress. People don't trust Congress. The reason people don't trust Congress is because of what I just explained to you, is that most of the bills that get passed through Congress or even proposed in Congress, they get presented as being about one thing when they're actually about not only that one thing, but also 7, 10, 15, 25 other things that they never tell you about. This is what they call pork. So they put the pork in the bill. So the pork just means all the stuff that they don't tell you about that would go in the bill. And then they try to get you to support it by telling you about the thing that they are telling you about. And then you don't even realize that when you say yes to, I agree to the terms and conditions, you agree to 50 other things that you don't even know about because they didn't tell you. See, that's how they trick you. And don't think that these people are dumb. They are actually very smart. They know exactly what they're doing. I'm saying all that to help you all understand this framing of DEI. DEI is a little bit more simple to understand, but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. When they say diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they want to defend it, what they do is pull the definitions out of the dictionary. Or who would be against this? Nobody. But then when you look at the way it's implemented, it's not the same as the definitions out of the dictionary. Because if it was, then you would just have diversity of skill sets, not diversity of color. Now, why do you need diversity of color? What does that do? Doesn't do anything. So let's say we get a whole bunch of people who are, let's say I have an organization and I want to get some diversity in my organization. I don't need diversity of color. I don't need a bunch of people who are different colors. I don't need to balance out the black people and the white people and the Latin people. Why? I don't need to balance out the men and the women. Why? I don't need to balance out the heterosexuals from the homosexuals. Why? Why do I need to do that? I want to balance out people who have skill, who will help my business do what the business is supposed to be doing. So if I have a sales organization, the only diversity I want is people who can close sales. So I got a person who can close old ladies. I got a person who can close men. I got a person who can close a single mom. I got a person who can close a teenager. I got a person who can close a senior citizen. I got a person who can close a retiree. I got a person who can do business to business. That's the kind of diversity I want. I don't need diversity of color. If that group, that what I just described ends up being a whole bunch of white men, I'm good with that. Why? Because I'm not in the business of color. I'm in the business of green. If I'm running a business, I'm in the business of making money. I want the most diverse team that's going to help me make money, not the team that's going to make me say, hey, look at all these black people I hired. If they can't sell, what the hell I want them on my team for? If I got a bunch of black people who can sell, why do I need white people? I want the people who are diverse and helping me achieve the outcome. Again, I come from the sports world. Sports, we got a scoreboard. See, our scoreboard is not checking a box. Our scoreboard is not hitting some damn quota. Our scoreboard is literally the scoreboard. We got to win the game. You play to win the game, not to check off a box and to give people some feel goods about being a part of a team because of the color diversity. That's nonsense. Who cares about that? I don't. Again, equity, if people achieving the same outcome is impossible. Equity is impossible. Equality is impossible. So I saw Nike a couple of years ago. They had an equality T-shirt. It just said equality with the Nike logo under it. Equality is impossible. Why is equality impossible? Because if you give everybody, because this started with Lyndon Baines Johnson, also known as LBJ, the president who took over after JFK was assassinated many years ago. And one of the things that he proposed, I'm paraphrasing him, was that many Americans everybody didn't start at the same spot. So what LBJ was proposing is that we need to put new, what's the word I'm looking for? Initiatives in place so that we can kind of level the playing field, so that everybody will kind of be starting at the same place and everybody's operating by the same level playing field. It's a fallacy. The reason that it's a fallacy is because even if you put everybody at the same starting spot, as soon as you let go of your control of them, human beings get to make their own decisions and get to take their own actions. They get to think however they want to think, which means no one's going to end up at the same spot no matter how much you try. You cannot manufacture equality. You cannot manufacture equity. It's impossible. I'll give you an example. So they say with black people in America, they say, well, black people should get reparations. So let's just say that happened, right? Let's just say that the government gave every black person in America who can trace their lineage back to chattel slavery, they give everybody $1 million. So let's just say that happened, right? So they give $1 million to every black person in America. 5 years from now, what would happen? Because right now, before they give the money out, you got some black people who are doing pretty well. You got some black people who are rich. You got some black people who are mediocre. You got some black people who are poor. But if they give every black person $1 million, you know what's going to happen? Within about 5 years, not going to take that long. Let's at the most 10 years, you're going to have some black people who are rich, black people who are well off, some black people who are mediocre, some black people who are poor. We're going to be right back in the same situation. Why? We're right back in the same situation because as soon as you give them the money, now they get to do what they want to do with the money. And the poor people with poor habits are going to keep doing the same stuff they did before. They just got more money to do it with. Rich people are going to do the same thing they've been doing before. They just have more money to do it with. People, when people are allowed to make their own choices, they are going to basically self-select themselves into certain groups. So years ago, I'll give you another example. Y'all remember the Occupy Wall Street thing from about 15 years ago, that Occupy Wall Street, where a bunch of people were complaining. They said they were part of the 99%, and they went and occupied a park. They went and sat in the grass in a park in New York to complain about the 1%ers who have all the money. The ironic thing about the Occupy Wall Street is that the people calling themselves the 99%ers, while they were supposed to be at work working, they're sitting in the park bitching, while the people who they're bitching about were in the office actually working. All right, that should tell you a little bit about why they're in the 1% and why everybody else is in the 99%. But that's not even my point. But when they talked about the Occupy Wall Street, the 1%, so the Social Security Administration, they started tracking what was happening to people because they were really trying to figure out the retirement age and what position people were in when they retired, so they could figure out how much money do people need for retirement. And, Social Security has always been a conversation in the United States of America, a hot conversation right now, as a matter of fact. And what they found was, this is back in like the 1960s. So what they started doing was tracking men, work age men, because at this time, mostly men were working. A lot of women were not in the workforce. This applies to women as well. They started tracking men from the age of 18 all the way up through age 65, which was the accepted retirement age back then. It has increased since then because people live longer, we're healthier. And here's what they found by the time people got to retirement age 65. You want to know what happened? Here's what they found. 1% of people were rich. And mind you, this is the 1960s. 1% of people by the time they retired were rich. 5% in general were well off financially. That includes the people who are rich. Another 15% were able to take care of themselves. They had enough resources to take care of themselves for the rest of their lives, maybe not have a ton of excess, but they could take care of themselves. And the other 80% were either dependent on family members or dependent on the government, dead broke, or actually dead. 80% they did not, in all of those years of working, 40-plus years of working, 40-ish years of working, they had not been able to put themselves into a good financial position. Now, mind you, this is back in the 1960s. 1% rich, 5% well off, 15% either still working or able to take care of themselves financially. The other 80% dead broke, dead, dependent on family, dependent on the government. That was in the 1960s. Now they updated the stats up to present day. You want to know what the stats are today? Here's what the stats are today. Pay attention. Notice the differences. Stats today are 1% rich, 5% financially well off, 15% either still working or able to take care of themselves. They're in a healthy financial space. They're good. 80% dead broke, dead, financially dependent on the government, financially dependent on kids. So if you didn't notice, the irony there is that the numbers didn't change. They're still exactly the same. So 60 years of progress in the United States of America. By the time people hit retirement age, the percentages are still exactly the same. They're still exactly the same 60 years later. I'm explaining all that to help you all understand that once you put people in a position to make their own decisions, they will always end up in the same place that they would have ended up, even if you didn't get involved. There's only so far you can guide and manufacture a person to go a certain way. They're eventually going to do what they want to do. Okay, so I said all that. I went on a tangent here, but I like going on tangents. So this climate change thing is what I'm supposed to be talking about. This entire concept, again, is just people playing around with words. It's a language game. Again, two movies on the same screen. So you got two people watching the same screen, looking at the same movie, but they come to completely different conclusions because they're talking about different things. There is the scientific, is the climate changing? Yes. Then there's the political climate change, which is, again, when they tell you, well, we can see these fires, we see these hurricanes, you should support a climate change bill, right? And then the citizens say yes. And then you pressure your Congress people to support the bill. And then they may be supporting a bill or they don't support the bill. So here's the thing. Let's say you pressure your congressperson because you're calling their office to support the bill for climate change. They support the bill for climate change while knowing what you don't know, which is a bunch of other things in that bill that have nothing to do with stopping a fire or stopping a hurricane. And how the hell can you stop a hurricane? You can't. But they go and support that bill, but there's a whole bunch of other things in there that you didn't know about, that they do know about, that are going to affect you in a negative way. And then later on, 5-10 years from now, when they start affecting you negatively, you're like, why the hell is this thing happening? I didn't support this. I didn't vote for this. But actually, yes, you did. You did because you told your congressperson to support that climate change bill when inside that climate change bill was the very thing that is costing you money now. And you're like, where the hell did this come from? But it was right there in that bill. You didn't read it. The bill was 300 pages long. You didn't read it. You told your congressperson to support it because you were emotionally manipulated to support a climate change bill because you saw the houses burned to a crisp in California or the hurricanes that leveled people's houses in North Carolina, and you went and supported the bill, not even realizing what you were signing up for. Same way that when any of you signs up for a website and you have to check the little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. Are you reading that? Most people don't read that. It's the same thing that happens when you tell a politician to support a certain law. You are agreeing to the terms and conditions and you don't even know what you're signing up for. And then when the bill comes 5-10 years from now, you're mad and complaining about the current administration when they're not even the ones who did it. You did it because you didn't read it. And here's why. And this is the other way they manipulate. So when Congress tries to pass a bill, let's say the Democrats try to pass a bill, right? Or they have a vote on a bill or a proposed legislation. And a bunch of Republicans go against it. What they'll do is they'll post the names because this is public. We should know about it because they work for us. What they'll do is they'll post the names of all the Republicans who voted against a certain bill. So let's just say there's a bill for like George Floyd, like the George Floyd bill about hate crimes or whatever it is. And I'm just making this up. There is one, but I'm not talking about the exact one. Let's say the George Floyd thing comes out on social media, it goes viral. Now the Congress people come up with a bill for George Floyd hate crimes bill. And then a bunch of Republicans vote against the bill because they see the details of what's in the bill. They know the details that you don't know about. And then they vote against it. And the bill fails on the floor of Congress. Here's what happens. They'll go and take the names of all the Republicans who voted against the bill and they'll post that on social media. Look at all these racist Republicans who didn't vote for this bill. And then that makes it seem like these people are racist or bad, or why would you not support a bill that would help people, from becoming the next George Floyd? Because then the Congress people understand what you don't understand. And many of them, unfortunately, interestingly enough, do not have the ability to articulate and explain what I'm explaining to you, or they just don't give a damn, so they don't bother to do it. If they could just explain to people, hey, the reason I didn't support this bill is because look at these details that y'all didn't know about. And also because most people don't have the attention span to actually listen, and they just go off of their feelings and emotions. I'm talking about citizens, people like you and I, that none of this actually comes to light. And even those of you who are listening to this and you appreciate it and you understand it, understand that you are but a small percentage of the masses of people. Most people don't want to take the time to understand this stuff. They will not take the time to listen to it. And they don't want to try to be able to have it explained to them because they rather just go off their emotions and their feelings. This is the reason why politics is politics in America, in that you have to play on people's feelings in order to be successful. You can't actually be logical and objective and be successful in politics in the United States of America, because you will not be able to reach enough people to win an election. It's impossible. Logic and objectivity are not popular items. So you can't go viral with logic and objectivity. It's impossible. Again, look at what goes viral on social media. It's not logic. It's not objectivity. It can be popular, but it ain't going viral. And if you want to reach the masses of people in America, you have to, quote unquote, go viral. If you get what I'm saying. Donald Trump's good at going viral. Kamala, good at going viral. Barack Obama, all the people who won, they had to have the tools to go viral. In other words, to touch on people's emotions while completely bypassing the logical and objective sensors of brains. That's what works. If you decide to be logical and objective, you should understand from the very beginning that you are limiting your reach. I understand that I'm doing it. If I wanted to reach 10 times more people than I reach, I wouldn't be talking the way that I'm talking. Because most people don't want to hear something like this, because I'm asking you to think. Most people don't want to think. Thinking is work. Anyway. So this whole thing of let's pass this bill or this new initiative under this guise of we're going to save the environment. All right. What politician do you think really cares about saving the environment? Say their name. Name the politician who you think cares about saving the environment. Say the name of that politician. Just give me their name. Any politician you think cares about saving the environment. There may be one or two who might care, but I'm just by your estimation, how many of them care about saving the environment? No, they don't care about saving the environment. Here's what happens. I'm just giving you a theoretical example. RFKJ, okay. I'm all right with RFKJ. I'm all right with Bernie, and I'm all right with Rand Paul. So I got a couple of names. I'm good with the Al Gore. I'm good with that too. But you see how you can name them? You see how you can name them? The exceptions prove the rule. That's my point. All right. So yeah, there are a few. The ones that got said, I agree with all of those. Bernie, Al Gore, Rand Paul, RFKJ. Who else? We named 4 people. You know how many people are in Congress? Are almost 500. All right. You can't even name them. Most of them, you don't even know who they are. All right. So the whole point, someone said Gavin Newsom saved the fish. I wouldn't put Newsom in this category. The whole point is this. Why do they want to pass that bill? The reason they want to pass some bill to save the environment, quote unquote, whatever they're claiming that they're going to do, is because they are either supporting their bureaucratic friends, people whose names you don't know, and they don't want you to know their names, those people who operate in the shadows of the government, or they are doing something that's going to help themselves personally. All right, this is how the government works, and the reason why people don't trust the government. Many people couldn't kind of spell out and articulate all these things that I'm saying, but all of us understand it. This is the reason why we don't trust the government. We do not trust Congress. And again, of the 3 branches of government, we understand who the president is. We understand the Supreme Court. It's Congress is the group, the entity that we actually do not trust. These are the lawmakers. These are the people who make the laws. But we don't trust them. And they know that we don't trust them. Next to the mainstream media, these are the 2 most distrusted entities in the United States. That's by statistics. The Congress and the mainstream media. They're the 2 least trusted entities in the United States of America. So there's other things that they're getting for themselves that are hidden underneath the header of, oh, we're going to save the climate. How are you going to not vote for something that saves the climate? All right, this is what people do. It's kind of like here in Miami. There'll be people who do this. Any of you who lives maybe it happens in small towns too, but in big cities, this happens a lot. You'll see people who will just be out on the street, especially here because it's nice outside all the time. And they'll just walk up to you and say, hey, and they'll try to shake your hand and they'll say something like, hey, have you heard of XYZ? It'll be some random charity that they're working for. Then they'll ask you a couple questions that are designed to get you to say yes. Y'all ever had this happen? They ask you a couple questions that are designed to get you to say yes. And then what they try to do is get you to be a donor to whatever charity that they're working for. So I'll give you an example. This is a couple of years ago. I'm in Miami, a high foot traffic area of Miami where I live. And I'm about to walk home, but I got to walk through all these people to get there. So this girl walks up to me. She has an iPad around her neck. And she's like, and she reached out to shake my hand. So I shake her hand. She says, something like, do you like animals or something like that? Do you like animals or do you care about the environment? I think it was animals she was asking about. And I was like, yeah. What about them? And she says, well, have you ever heard of XYZ, name of the company? I said, no, I haven't heard of it. So they ask questions that are predictably, they know what answers they're going to get. She says, and she goes on to this whole spiel about how what we do is we give a cow, for example, to some needy family in some country out somewhere else. And that allows them to take care of their family and take care of their kids. And no, that's a great thing, right? And again, it's all designed to they already know what answers you're going to give. and say, well, but wouldn't it be great to be able to help families like that to get a cow or something like that? And then I say, all again, predictable answers. I say, yeah. And then she says, well, what's your first name? And then as she says that, she's opened up her iPad to start putting my information in. This is their sales process. And I remember this last time that this happened to me. I remember the girl walked up to me because I had this happen before, so I knew their hustle. She walks up to me and she says, does the handshake thing. And I say, what are you selling? That's the first thing I said. What are you selling? And she said, I'm not selling anything. I promise you, I'm not selling anything. I knew she was selling something, but she was a terrible salesperson. She should have just answered the question. She was lying. So I'm not selling anything. She goes through her whole thing and she gets right to the iPad, asking me my name. And I said to her, I told you I'm not selling anything. I told you I'm not buying anything. That's what I said to her. I said, what are you selling? I said, I'm not buying anything. I said, let me tell you up front, I'm not buying anything. So if you want to just keep walking and not talk to me, go ahead. But I'm not buying anything. But I'll listen to your pitch. Just let you know I'm not buying. And she said, no, I'm not selling anything. I'm not selling anything. She insisted. And then when she got to the iPad part, I said, I just told you I'm not buying anything. And then she just walked away and rolled her eyes at me. And as I'm walking away, I heard her talking to our coworker. And she said, well, people like him, we call them like information gatherers. And I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, bitch, you're the one who messed up. You didn't know what you were doing. You were an unseasoned salesperson. Had you just been honest with me up front, I might have become a donor. Probably not. But I would have just told her, look, I'm not buying nothing. Go talk to the next person. The whole point being, folks, is that if you're selling something, be upfront. Be honest about what you're selling. Be honest about what they're getting. Be honest about what they're not getting, because what you don't want is to, first of all, use up your time talking to somebody who ain't going to buy what you're selling. If you just be honest, then they can tell you, no, I'm not buying. So don't even waste your time talking to me. Go talk to someone who's an actual prospect as opposed to what we call a suspect. Or B, what you don't want is to sell something to somebody and then they realize later that you sold them something that they didn't actually want. Now they're mad at you. Now you got disgruntled customers. Either way, you lose. And this is the whole concept of when people are saying, let's support the environment by supporting this climate change bill. That's not really what you're supporting. You don't even know what you're supporting. And if you want to know, you got to go find the bill that they're proposing and you got to go read the details of the bill. One piece of good news about Congress and the legislature is that every bill that gets proposed, it must be put out there publicly for you to read. You can go on, I believe it's congress.gov. You can read every bill that's out there and you can read the details. The thing is, these bills are written in, sometimes a bill could be short, like 3-5 pages, but sometimes it could be 200 pages long. Who's going to sit there and read all that? They don't even read it. The people who are making the laws that are affecting your life, they're not even reading these things. They're just supporting whatever side they're supposed to support, because we have this two-party system. And this is something a lot of people talk about. Like, we need more options. And I understand the need for it. I don't know if it's going to happen in our lifetimes, but I understand it. So this whole umbrella of climate change is, again, it's a Trojan horse is what it is. That's what I say about climate change. Is the climate changing? Yes, it is. Is climate change, when we use it, is the climate changing? That's with lowercase letters. Yes. Now, this whole concept of climate change with a capital C climate, capital C change, those are two different things. You have the phrase climate change, then you have the proper name climate change. Those are two different conversations, two movies on the same screen. Do not be fooled, because people are actively trying to fool you and they're using your emotions to fool you. They're not fooling you with logic. They're fooling you with emotions. Moving on. This resource allocation is happening in, we're talking about the LAFD's DEI department, DEI leadership that they got right now. This is a resource misallocation. That's what it is. Because California is a Democratic state. We know that. And when I say Democratic, I mean Democrat with a capital D, not Democrat as in majority rules, but Democrat as in the blue side, left. And their focus on DEI, what it has done is put people who are likely unqualified. These people are likely unqualified. And qualified is a very subjective term. Unqualified is a subjective term. The reason I'm using it right here subjectively is because when you are hiring people based on DEI policy, that means you are by design hiring people based on their personal identity rather than based on their ability to perform. So that makes them by definition unqualified. Does everybody understand what I'm saying here? You are unqualified by definition if you are hired based on your identity rather than based on your skill. Now, is it possible you could hire somebody based on identity and they actually turn out to be good? The answer is yes, that can happen. You can hire somebody based on who they are. I'm going to hire you because you're black, and they end up actually being good. I'm going to hire you because you're gay, and they actually are good. I'm going to hire you because you're a woman, and they're actually just as good as the man that you might have hired. Is that possible? Yes, it is. But when you hire somebody based on their identity, then you make them unqualified by definition just by choosing them for that reason. If they were actually good, then they could have competed against everybody else and got the opportunity the exact same way. Now, I understand the pushback to this point. Pushback to this point is, well, Dre, the reason DEI came to be a thing is because a lot of women and racial minorities and gay people were excluded from even being considered because the situation was set up by and for, let's say, straight white men. I get that argument. Here's my response to that argument. My response to that argument is, let me remind you again who I am and where I'm from and why I talk about what I talk about. I am a professional athlete. That's my background. I look at things from the frame of an athlete. And as an athlete, the only thing we ask for is show us where the field is, tell us the rules of the game, get out the way, and let's find out who's better. That's the space that I operate from. Even as a professional and a business entrepreneur to this day, I still operate from that space. Put me in a space where I can compete against everybody else, even if the odds are stacked against me. In sports, we call that playing the game on the road. And if you're going to be a champion in the sports world, you have to win some games on the road. You can't be a champion only winning home games. Does everybody understand that metaphor that I'm giving you here? If you're going to be a champion in life, you got to win some games on the road. You can't just win home games and be a champion. You remember Michael Jordan, that last shot with the Chicago Bulls? That wasn't a home game. That was a road game. You got to go on the road and win some games. Doesn't mean you're going to win every game on the road, but you got to win some of them. Zig Ziglar, who was he was known by the end of his life, he was more known as a motivational speaker, but his actual thing was Zig Ziglar was a salesman. He was a sales trainer. He was a hardcore salesperson, door-to-door sales, what we call belly-to-belly salesperson. He would knock on somebody's door uninvited, talk his way into the house, get a seat in their living room, and sell them pots and pans. Literally, Zig Ziglar sold cookware, literally pots and pans. That's how he got in the game, and that's how he got himself known. And one of the things that Zig said in one of his trainings, he has this program called Secrets of Closing the Sale. If you've never heard of it, look it up. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it on Audible. You can find it on Spotify. It's out of copyright, so you can listen to it for free. It's called Secrets of Closing the Sale. It's about 15 hours long. I suggest you listen to it if you're a salesperson, and everybody's a salesperson. And one of the things that Zig would always say, he said that as a salesperson, of course, you're going to have some sales that are easy ones. In the sales world, they call those lay downs, where you sit down with your prospect and they just lay down the money and just take the money. They're already ready to buy. Those are the easy ones. Then you're going to have some that are no way. This is a person who is not interested in buying, doesn't want to buy, doesn't want your product, doesn't have the money. You're never going to sell them. All the other sales are in the middle. All your other prospects are in the middle. They could go either way. They could be a yes, they could be a no. If you're going to be a great salesperson, you have to close some of these sales in the middle. You can't build an entire sales career only talking to laydowns they already want to buy. And you can't build a career, of course, talking to a bunch of people who can't buy. You got to close some of those in the middle. And the more of those in the middle that you're able to close, the better the salesperson you become. And those that are in the middle are the road games. Those are the games that you got to win on the road. Again, you're not going to go undefeated on the road, because some of those that go either way, you're going to miss them. And you're going to be mad at yourself like, damn, I could have said this. I could have used this. I could have overcame that objection. Sometimes that's going to happen. Or you couldn't follow up, or they won't respond anymore. Sometimes that'll happen. But you got to close some of them. If you can't close any of them, you're not going to be able to sustain as a salesperson. You'll probably quit before you get fired because you ain't making no money. Does everybody get what I'm saying here? I'm saying all that to say this, that when you hire people based on DEI, then you have set them up with a home game where they didn't have to earn it. So, of course, they're going to be looked at funny. And people are going to say, well, we know you didn't earn it because they only hired you because they got this DEI policy. So now it makes you look bad when you get hired based on DEI and you happen to be good. Now you're like, damn, I'm good, but everybody's looking at me like I only got hired because I'm female or I'm black or because I'm gay, but I'm actually good. The problem is not you. The problem is that they had a policy that said that we're going to favor people like you. So now you are always going to be looked at funny, even if you earned your spot. That's why I'm not a fan of DEI. I'm not a fan of it because I don't ever want to step into any place as a black male and have anybody thinking or nonetheless saying, nobody's ever said it to me and they wouldn't, but I don't want anybody thinking, oh, this guy's only here because they had to hire a black guy. No, I'm here because I'm actually good at what I do. And I wish more black people thought this way. I think there are a lot of black people who think this way, but they keep it quiet. I'm willing to say it out loud, but I hear a lot of black people, whenever I talk about this, I get a lot of pushback from black people who say, well, what I already said. They instituted DEI because a lot of black people were excluded from opportunities. I say, just show me where the opportunity is at. Let me figure out how to get in the room. Let me figure out how to talk my way into an opportunity. I don't need you to hand me. I don't want to be handed anything. I want to earn what I got. That's the world that I come from. In the sports world, you can't get handed a career. It's impossible. You get handed a career in the government. You can get handed a career in corporate America. You can be handed a career in any other bureaucratic space other than sports. Sports is the only place in the world as a professional where you're making a full-time income where you must earn your keep. Other spaces you can kind of get carried along even if you're not good because nobody can or will fire you depending on who's in charge. If your dad runs the company, you can have a job at the company even if you ain't shit. If your dad runs a sports team at the professional level and you ain't shit, as soon as you get on the field or on the court, it'll be obvious that you can't play. And your dad got to pull you out the game. Right? In the business world, you could keep working. You keep collecting the check for 10 years with your dad running the company, even if you're garbage. Can't happen in sports. Impossible for that to happen in sports. Everybody understand the frame that I'm giving you here? So this is the reason why I'm not a fan of DEI in general. And when you choose people based on skill sets, not identity, or you ignore skill sets and choose by identity, that's the wrong way to run a performance-based organization. If your organization is based on performance, you cannot choose people based on identity. That doesn't work. You can't play both games at the same time. If you're a performance-based organization, you must hire people based on ability to perform, not identity. And you cannot prioritize both at the same time. Which one is it? All you've been in a car before, right? Some of you are in a car right now listening to me. How many steering wheels does a car have? It has one steering wheel. So if you're running an organization, you have to decide what's the steering wheel of this organization. Is it performance or is it identity? If it's identity, then okay, let's get a bunch of gay people and a bunch of women and a bunch of black people in here so we can say that we did it. If that's your aim, hey, do what you do. Do your thing. If that's your thing, do your thing. Whatever you're about, be about it. But if you say you're a performance-based organization, then you need to be hiring people based on their ability to perform and their actual performance. And you keep them or elevate them or get rid of them based on their performance, not based on their identity. So you have to ask yourself, any of you who runs an organization right now, what's the steering wheel? Is it performance or is it identity? And you can't front and say it's one thing when it's obvious that it's another, because people are going to call you out on your bullshit. People like me will call you out on your bullshit. The LA Fire Department has decided that their steering wheel is identity. And that's why they're getting called out. That's the reason why this is the topic here today. If they said our steering wheel is performance, then they would have different people at the top of their organization. We know this because, again, what are the chances that 3 LGBTQ brown women all ended up at the top of that department? That's like 1 in 60,000 possibility that could even happen. All right, that is not what happened. They hired people based on identity and they get called out for it, period. Moving on. What happens here is what we call the erosion of expertise. When the best people are continually not chosen in a space because you're choosing based on identity, then slowly but surely, it may not happen immediately, it doesn't happen overnight, but slowly but surely, you stop getting the best possible performers in the right positions. And over time, your entire organization starts to fall apart. It's kind of like you have a house and you don't do inspections and you don't keep up with the infrastructure of the house. Eventually, the whole house starts falling apart. You get termites and then the foundation is falling apart, and then it's not safe to be in the house anymore. It doesn't pass inspection. Now you got to move out of the house, and the house loses all its value because slowly but surely you stop doing your checks. You stop doing what you're supposed to do. Any of you ever been on an airplane and they said, well, the plane got delayed because we had to do not a security check, but like a maintenance check. And this piece didn't pass the maintenance check. So now we got to delay till we get it fixed. And then the plane's sitting on the tarmac for an hour, on the runway for an hour. And then they eventually say, well, this plane's not taking off. We got to get everybody off the plane, get you on a different plane, or the plane's not taking off till tomorrow. Your flight gets canceled. Why? Because they have strong standards and rules for making sure that the checks and balances are checked and balanced. But if you don't do that, and you're continually hiring people based on identity rather than skill, eventually the performance in your organization will suffer, period. There's no other outcome. The law of entropy states that an object or entity left to its own devices eventually moves into a state of disorder and chaos if there are no standards and parameters set in place. If you're a performance-based organization, then your standards and parameters are based on measurable performance. And if you stop abiding by those standards, eventually your performance will drop. Again, ladies and gentlemen, here's what you need to understand in life. Shit happens. All right, all of you heard that phrase before, right? Shit happens. Any of you ever had shit happen in your life? Something that you didn't want, something that was unexpected, unplanned, but it was a bad thing. Now, all of us have had that happen before. Success does not just happen. Shit just happens. Success never just happens. In order for things to get worse, you don't have to do anything. Just sit there, do nothing. Eventually, things will get worse. That's the law of entropy. It's a scientific law. That is not a theory. It's not my opinion. If you want things to get better, you can't just sit and do nothing. For things to get better, you must be conscious and intentional about things getting better. That means you have to have standards. You have to have parameters. You have to hold yourself accountable. That's the only way you can get better in life. You cannot get better by sitting there doing nothing. And if you remove standards and you remove parameters for performance, you will not perform. Guaranteed. There are no exceptions to this. That's not even a debatable point. So the goal of running an organization like a fire department, especially in a place where fires actually happen all the time, like big time fires. I'm not talking about like somebody's house, but like what we're having going on in California right now, is about keeping everybody alive and safe, right? Isn't that the goal of a fire department? We got any firefighters in there? Isn't that the point? In a place like California where fires happen and outside fires, I'm not talking about somebody's, they left the chicken frying too long in their kitchen. Outside fires that can burn down entire communities and houses and threaten people's lives and livelihoods. The goal is keeping everybody alive and safe, knowing that these fires naturally occur. But what is the LA Fire Department obviously prioritizing? They're not prioritizing keeping everybody alive and safe. What are they prioritizing? They're prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can anybody argue with this point? When you're trying to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion over the safety and health of the public, then you are not doing your job. This is disrespectful to the people who live there in California. But at the same time, I can't feel that sorry for those. If we got any people from Los Angeles who are listening to this right now, I can't feel that sorry for y'all because y'all voted for this. I don't feel that bad. Y'all voted for the mayor. Y'all voted for these people. Y'all voted for the governor. So when they end up doing something that you don't like, well, who you gonna be mad at? You voted for them. Now you may say to yourself, and this is a key point, a legitimate point. Well, hey, what if you didn't vote for them, but the majority rules in the democratic process and they got voted in anyway, even though you didn't vote for that person? Well, good news about the United States of America is that there are 50 said states. There are 50 states in America. So if you don't like what's going on in one state, go to another state. I haven't heard too much over the last 5 years. I haven't heard about too many people leaving one state to move to California. I heard a lot about people leaving California to go somewhere else. I heard a lot of that. Seen a lot of Californians move to Texas. Seen a lot of them move to Tennessee or Nashville. I've seen a lot of them move to Florida, down here where I'm at. I haven't heard about too many people leaving one of the other 49 states to move to California. I haven't heard about too much of that. I hear a lot of people leaving though. You tell me. So if you didn't vote for it, if you live in Los Angeles, you didn't vote for it, and you see the shenanigans happening, then all right, why are you still there? What you waiting for? What are you waiting for? You only get one spin here in life. What are you waiting for? So what happens overall is that this deepens the distrust people have of politics and the policies that come from politicians, which I've already talked about. All right, politicians create these policies. If you didn't vote for that politician, then you might want to look into where else you can go. You probably get a higher quality of living. You can probably live there for less money. You might not get the weather. You might have to trade the weather. So I know California has generally great weather. Most people consider great weather. I think Florida's weather is better as long as you can deal with the humidity in the summertime. But anyway, a lot of people like California for that. And you got the beach, you got the water over there, and whatever other things come with it. If you're willing to accept that trade-off of giving that up, at least a little bit of it, to go somewhere else for a better overall quality of life, then you better get out your Google Maps. You better get out Zillow. You'll fire up your Zillow, find a place for you to live. Apartments.com. You ain't got to stay there. That's a good thing about the United States of America is that there are 50 states, and they each, on many levels, run things how they want to run them independently. That's the great thing about the United States. It was beautifully designed by the founding fathers. So departments, what happens here to go even further on this problem is that when you're hiring people based on identity, the department has to spend more money on things like training, on teaching people how to do things the right way, because you're not hiring people who come pre-qualified with skills. You're hiring people who come underqualified in skill. So you got to spend more time and more money teaching them how to do the job the right way, when instead you could have hired the person who was already at a higher level. So let's say the highest level of being a firefighter is like a level 100 skill set, like a level 100. You play video games, the best players will be like a level 99, right? So if you could have hired somebody who was a level 92, that means you only had to spend this much resources to close the gap between where they came in and where they ended up. But instead, because you're prioritizing, instead of prioritizing performance, you're prioritizing identity. So now you're hiring somebody who comes in at a level 75. Now you got to spend this much more resources to train this person than you would have had to spend to train this person. And those resources got to come from somewhere. And where's the money coming from? It's coming from you. It's coming from your pocket. That's your tax dollars paying for that. You're the one paying for it. You're the one paying. So any of you here who is a supporter of DEI, understand that this is one of the costs of DEI. One of the costs of DEI is more money must be spent to teach someone how to do the job the right way, because they didn't come with the prerequisite necessary skills, because that is no longer the standard. Standard is now identity. So now we'll hire a level 75 person and we'll spend money to close that 25 level gap. And instead of hiring a level 92 person, we only had to spend this much money to close the 8 level gap. And that money is coming out of your pocket. The government ain't got no money. And any money they have came from you. That's your tax dollars paying for that. Your sales tax, your state tax. And the state of California, what's the income tax? 40%, 39%. It's crazy. I was looking at, we were looking at California a few years ago, maybe about 2018, 2019. I was looking at possibly moving to Southern California, but a couple things got in the way. Number one, I was looking at the housing and I'm like, this housing is not as new or as modern as what's in Miami, but it costs twice as much. That was number one. And number two, the income tax. There's no state income tax in the state of Florida. So you get to keep your money. In California, there's a large income tax. I said, these two combined, not happening. I will deal with Miami. So I'm still here. If I leave South Florida, it will be to another country. I'm not going anywhere else in America, as far as I can see. So anyway, this deepens the distrust people have. Already told you that. More money gets spent on training people who came in not qualified. And these shifting priorities take the focus off of where it should be. So now the focus goes to things like the DEI thing, which I understand why people were kind of pushing back. Why y'all talking about that? And we should be talking about these lies. But we got to talk about it because it leads to other problems later on down the line. It is not the reason for the problem that is happening right now. I'll say this again. I said it at the top. I'll say it again. The fires happening in California right now are not because the LA Fire Department hired a bunch of DEI people. That's not the reason that the fires are happening. However, the issue happening in California with the fires puts a microscope on the DEI hires, and therefore they're going to get talked about, because politics is just as much about optics as it is about actual facts, evidence, and outcomes. All right, all of that is true. All of that said, let's get in the comments here. Over on YouTube, and I'm going to go to YouTube, then Facebook if there is any, then Instagram, then TikTok. So Sabrina over on YouTube, good morning, Sabrina said, how is it not okay to question facts out loud? Well, it depends on which facts and who you're questioning. So the answer is it depends. Sabrina said, honesty is what is expected. Well, depending on who you're talking about. And what about those that are in the apprenticeship program? Are those part of the DEI? Which apprenticeship program are you talking about? Andy said Los Angeles is in the house. So shout out to Los Angeles. Andy Chu said, hella politics where money spent in bureaucracy, city is in debt. Yeah, almost all cities are. Not many big cities, let's say, are in debt. Sabrina said, yes, they are prioritizing fish. Yeah, I heard a couple people mention that fish thing. I didn't know that much about the fish situation, but I'm thinking you all are right, because I heard a couple people say that they're prioritizing the fish in California. Shout out to the fish. Hopefully they're eating well. All right, so let's see what we got over on. I don't think I saw any comments on Instagram. Did I see any? I didn't see any comments on Instagram. Let's see what we got over on TikTok. I know there's some comments on TikTok. So Brittany, you go ahead and start pinning any good ones that I should respond to, and I'll get to them. Federal court said they fly around in private jets, talk to people about climate change. Yeah, exactly. Right. So they're destroying the environment by flying around in a private jet. Terry says all about power and money. It's always about power and money. Yes. It's about power and money for everyday citizens too. But we're not using other people to get ours. They're using other people to get theirs. That's the difference. Mindful, healthy life says our education system is not teaching our children how to reason and make decisions. No, it is not. That's for us as parents. We got to teach our kids that outside of school, but don't expect school to do that, because if school did that, then the students would get a little bit too smart and they would start questioning the teachers. and they don't want that. So you got to teach that outside of school. Houdini said Eddie Murphy Trading Places told you how it works. I don't think most people will get that reference. One badge. Let's see. Clown Lives Matter said, bro is condescending AF. Must be a Miami thing. I'm condescending? How am I condescending? And I'm not even from Miami. I'm from Philadelphia. I live in Miami, but I'm from Philadelphia. So is it a Philadelphia thing or a Miami thing? Where'd I get it from? Geppetto says, selling 101, you always want to sell the person who says that they don't want solicitors. Yeah, well, nowadays you can say that. Back in the days, you couldn't say you didn't want solicitors. That's a relatively new development to block solicitors. Back then, you just had to answer the door. Danny said, bills should be one issue only, too many earmarks. Yeah, earmarks. That's a good word to describe it. Yes, earmarks or the pork. And yes, bills should be one issue only. The problem with that is that would be what Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy are proposing, like that Department of Government Efficiency. The legislators don't want that because it would basically bare naked all the things that they're doing. And they don't want the things they're doing to get exposed. That's why they're going against it. They don't want people to know about it. Because if people knew, if the bills were one issue only and everything had to be in the bill and it was plain language for any citizen to understand, then a lot of the nonsense that the government is able to push through under our noses would no longer be able to push it through. It would change the face of government as we know it, which is what Vivek and Elon are proposing that they're going to do. We'll see if they actually do it, because they're going to get a fight in order to try, but we'll see what they do. Sabrina says there's a lot of apprenticeship programs being implemented throughout each state. Well, it depends on how they're doing it, Sabrina. So it's a case-by-case basis. I can't speak on it in a general sense. Houdini said this should be a podcast so he can speak his spiel. Well, I actually have a podcast, Houdini. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. It is called Work on Your Game. And this video is on YouTube right now, so you'll be able to watch this as a replay. And nowadays, people make YouTube videos and call them podcasts. But I have an actual podcast, and I got YouTube videos. So I got two different ones. Spicy said they moved from global warming to climate change. Yeah, exactly. Interesting, right? Same way they went from affirmative action to DEI. Traditional said a billionaire couple owned Cali. Well, I heard about that. Millennium said BlackRock planned. Yeah, I've heard people saying that. Trent Michelle said, why don't you do your research? What research am I missing? And nothing I said was research based. The things I'm saying are based on things that I have seen, that I can observe, and I'm giving you my interpretation of them. What research do I need for the things that I discussed? Now, if you're talking about research for something that you want to talk about, then that means you need to do your own life. But I didn't think I said anything that was not researched. Let's see. 40 years ago, we were going into an ice age. Yeah, I remember that. And now it's melting, allegedly. Actually, no, I think it is actually melting. Danny says climate change cannot be controlled. We're just a speck on the map, been happening for years. Yes, I agree with that idea, but then people get mad when you say that out loud. I have seen this. I get on X and I say that, and people start pushing back with their language games. So you got to be very careful with these folks. They're not dummies. They're very smart in how they word things. Ricardo Stevens said that's not how it works in corporate America. How does it work, Ricardo? Tina said excellent metaphor. Thank you. Houdini said, talk to a business person and move out of the way so we can show how DEI works in business. No, we don't want DEI in business. We want performance in business. Lisa Marie said, wish everyone thought your way. Be careful what you wish for. Actually, you know what, Lisa? I'm glad everybody does not, because if everybody thought like this, then I wouldn't even need to do this, because everybody would already be thinking it. I wouldn't need to say it. So the fact that not everybody thinks this way gives me an opportunity. Federal court said that was an offensive foul. Son of God got the number 3 gifted badge. Spicy said, do I think Kamala was chosen because DEI? Well, by definition, she was. Joe Biden said, I'm going to choose a black woman. And he chose Kamala. And at this point, Kamala decided that she was going to push the black thing. So she was chosen because of DEI. And it's not, I think. It's Joe Biden positioned her that way by saying what he said. If he had just picked her, then she wouldn't be DEI. But since he said it and then he picked her, then she becomes DEI by definition. So Joe Biden actually did that to her. Ricardo says Kamala was a very qualified candidate based on her previous work experience. Well, qualified is a subjective term. So if you think she was qualified, I'm not going to argue with you on that. I don't mind somebody thinking that she was qualified. What matters is what was she actually going to do, and what she was proposing to do did not sound good for the people, as far as I'm concerned. Dob said, "What about a construction company? What about it?" I don't think I mentioned construction companies. What are you referring to? Deborah Perry, thank you for the rose. Danny said, "You are where you are because you worked harder than others did." Well, that's part of it. Is also you got to work hard in the right places. Had I decided to be a ballerina and work hard, I don't know if I would have made it to where I'm at today. So you got to choose where to work hard. So we have this thing that we call the 12 work on your game commandments. One of the commandments is you got to be in the right vehicle. So just because you work hard does not mean you're going to be successful. You got to work hard at the right thing. So if you work hard on something that's not the right thing for you, you're still not going to become successful. Donnie Love said, "You are misunderstanding." What am I misunderstanding? Son of God said, "I was hired and promoted because of affirmative actions." Well, congratulations to you. Anybody who took advantage of affirmative action, I ain't mad at you. If you took advantage of DEI, I ain't mad at you. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of them. So I'm not mad at you if it worked for you, but I'm also not a fan. Both are true. Dob said, "Everything is on an even playing field in sports. The rules are the same and applies to everybody." Exactly. That's right. Marky Man said, "In boxing, they throw fights." I've heard that. You still get the general point of what I'm saying, though, right? That in sports is the closest thing to a meritocracy you get. Someone said Bronny James. John Dirk said Bronny James. Well, yeah, see, the thing with Bronny James is exactly my point. He got put into a position because his dad is his dad. And then as soon as he got on the court, it was obvious that he couldn't play, and now he doesn't play. He's on the bench or playing in the G League. Donnie said that's not what DEI is. You don't have the correct definition. Donnie, I strongly disagree with that. I do have the correct definition. I talked about DEI a lot. I have read into it. I researched it. I know the actual definitions of the dictionary, and I know the implementation of it. So, Donnie, I'm gonna push back on your pushback and tell you that you are wrong to say that I'm wrong. But you can give some context if you believe you have an accurate perspective. Donnie said, "Where does DEI mean hiring unqualified people?" That's a straw man question, Donnie. I never said that. I didn't say it means hiring unqualified people. I said DEI means choosing people based on identity, which means by definition they become unqualified because you're not hiring them based on performance, abilities, and skill set. You can only prioritize one thing. So you either hire them because of their skill or you hire them because of their ability. And if you're hiring skill or their identity, and if you focus on identity, then the natural outcome is that some people will not have the skill, but they're going to get hired anyway because of identity. Again, that's not my personal opinion. That's just simple logic. Donnie said, "When cooking goes wrong." My cooking is going very well. I make really good food, Donnie. Donnie said, "Let me block you." How you blocking me when you in my life? Tabitha said that this is exactly why Kate Ivey chose DEI safe spaces at college campuses. Well, people who work in the academic space stay in the DEI safe space because they can have a whole career in that safe space and they don't ever have to come outside and talk to people like me. DEI academics really don't like talking to me. I get blocked by them like literally every day. So let's say Donnie actually helped me hit my quota for the day. I get blocked by DEI academics every day on X. Every day I get blocked because I challenge them on their nonsense and they realize that they can't talk circles around me and they can't use their language games on me. And then at that point, they just block me because they know that they can't, there's no point in engaging with me because I'm going to call them out on their bullshit. Now, people who they can talk around, they'll engage with those people, but they won't engage with me. At least not too deep. Once they realize who I am, they say, uh-oh, let me just stop talking to this guy because I'll expose them. Tabitha said, "Come to the South." Yes, I'm in the South. I'm in Miami. Danny said, "Those ladies aren't dragging anyone out of a house." Yeah, they're probably not. No. Michael Magaro says, "Self-employed for 40 years. I've always had plenty of work. Put up or shut up. You must do consistently." That's right. And that's right. I'm with you, Michael. Ricardo says, "Show us where companies are removing parameters for DEI's sake." I just explained it. You can only prioritize one thing. You can't prioritize performance and DEI at the same time. That's not possible. You can only pick one. So if you sacrifice prioritizing performance, then the performance is going to suffer. That's the law of entropy. It's a scientific law, ladies and gentlemen. That is not my personal opinion. It's a scientific law. If you are not prioritizing a thing, that thing will suffer. If you don't prioritize your relationship, the relationship gets worse. You don't prioritize your body gets worse. You don't prioritize your taking care of your teeth get in worse shape. All right, that's just a scientific law. The law of entropy. Look it up. Things go into disorder and chaos when they are not held accountable to standards. Again, that's not my personal opinion. And human beings can only focus on one thing at a time. If you decide to put something in the number 2 spot instead of the driver's seat, it is not going to do as well as if it was in the driver's seat. An example I give of this, when you see a basketball player making a rap album, I say this basketball player is not doing his best at basketball or rapping because he's trying to do 2 things at the same time. When you focus on one thing, you do your best at that one thing. You try to focus on more than one thing, you cannot give your best to either one. Even if you do well, you can't give your best to either one. Shaquille O'Neal, you know who he is, right? When he first came in the NBA, he was doing all kinds of stuff, making rap albums and songs and all that shit. He wasn't winning championships. When he got with the LA Lakers and Phil Jackson became the coach, Phil Jackson said to him, I want you to just focus on basketball and not do all that other shit. Shaq did that. They won 3 straight championships. It's an example, but it proves the point. And it doesn't prove the point, it illustrates the point. Examples don't prove arguments, but it's a good illustration of the point that I'm making. When you focus on something, you get the best that you can possibly get out of it. When you do not focus on a thing, you are not getting your best out of it. Your best, your less than best might still be better than most people. For example, when Shaquille O'Neal was making rap albums, he was still a damn good basketball player. He was still better than 99% of people who pick up a basketball, but he wasn't his best. When he stopped making rap albums and only did basketball, he won 3 championships in a row. That's just an absolute fact. So you can't prioritize more than one thing. An organization cannot prioritize DEI and performance at the same time. They have to pick one. And when you prioritize DEI, the performance will naturally suffer. Not a theory, not an opinion, a scientific fact, scientific law, not a fact, a law. User 4777. People here are afraid of what his opinion is. It's not that they're afraid of my opinion. They're afraid of my ability to express it. That's what their real problem is. That's the reason why I get blocked by academics on social media, because I can defend my position and I can articulate my position. It's not the fact that I have it. A lot of people think the way that I'm expressing, just most people can't put it into words the way that I do. So that's the problem that they have. It's not that I have the position. Jennifer said, you're not qualified to discuss firefighting. I'm not talking about firefighting. What did I say in any of this? I've been talking for almost 2 hours. I haven't said anything about actual fighting of fires because that's not the subject. So Jennifer, that's what we call a straw man argument. Jennifer said, you're a school for MAGA. I'm not MAGA. I'm just a logical and objective observer of what's going on in the world, and I have the ability to express it. Now, what you should ask yourself, Jennifer, is if I'm being logical and objective, and then you immediately tag that as MAGA, what does that say about the liberals and the Democrats? If being logical and objective makes me MAGA or conservative or a Trump supporter, what does that say about the left, the political left in America? It says they're everything that's not that. Tina said, excellent soliloquy and premise, build, and correlation. Thank you. I like the way you worded that. Thank you. Mike Lowry said, you look smart until you start talking. That's what some people say. That's what some people say. But what did I get wrong, Mike? I mean, it's a funny little comment you made there, but what did I get wrong? Jennifer said, you're spreading lies and misinformation. Who's paying you? Another straw man point. What lies and misinformation did I spread? Tell me what I got wrong. So any of you who disagrees with something that I said, just point out what I got wrong. Instead of throwing out these accusations, just tell me what I got wrong. And I will gladly engage and tell you why you are wrong. Because I don't talk about stuff that I don't know what I'm talking about. But if I am, tell me what I got wrong. Just point it out. Tabitha said, y'all voted Trump again. Look how he managed the P word. I don't know if I should say that word. Well, it was a virus, Tabitha. What's the president supposed to do to stop a virus? I mean, people come back to that, but I'm not even going into that rabbit hole, but I'm just responding quickly to your comment. Bree Sara said, isn't it convenient how this is the talking of the right and you're around to chat? What is that supposed to mean? There's only 2 sides politically. There's the right and there's the left. So if I was saying something that leaned more towards the left, then someone, the inverse of you would be saying, well, you're just supporting the left. You're saying I'm supporting the right. What's the difference? Someone said, Jennifer's so angry this morning. Please go enjoy your day if you don't like what you hear. No. Let her stay. I want her to stay. If you disagree with me, stick around. Don't leave. Stay. I have no problem with people disagreeing. Just tell me why you disagree. Tell me what I got wrong and articulate what I got wrong. And I will explain to you why I'm not wrong and I'm right. I am completely open to people disagreeing with me. So I want y'all to understand, I am not a politician. I'm not corporate. I don't work in academia. In those spaces, when people disagree with them publicly, they go run and hide and they block people and they don't respond. I will engage with you if you disagree with me, but you better bring some substance and you better come correct. If you come with some nonsense, then I'm going to call you out and embarrass you for sounding stupid. But if you disagree, go ahead and disagree. Tell me what I got wrong. I'm open to hearing it. So we want disagreement in the room. I'm okay with that. Jennifer says, what makes you an authority? Full of lies and hate. That's a great question. So first of all, I don't know what I lied about, and I definitely didn't offer any hate. So I don't know what you're talking about, Jennifer. That's what we call an appeal to emotion fallacy. But what makes me an authority, Jennifer, is that I turned on this camera and I started talking about this subject. That's what makes me an authority. It would make you an authority too if you did the same thing. Authority is something that you choose. It's not something that is given to you. You don't get authority by somebody granting you authority. Authority is taken, just like leadership is taken. You become an authority when you decide you're an authority. So the reason I'm an authority and you're not is because I decided to do this and you did not. But the good news is you can change that and you can become an authority too. What's the root word of authority? The root word of authority is author. You see these books behind me? Author. That's why I'm an authority. I'm using that as a metaphor. The point is the fact that I decided to put myself out there and say what I want to say makes me an authority by the very fact of turning on the camera. And the good news for all of you who are listening to me, you can do the exact same thing. You can turn on the camera too, if you got the balls to do so. Two things you need to be a successful entrepreneur. You need a strong stomach and you need balls, metaphorical balls. So even if you're a female, Son of God said, good information. Thank you. Got the #1 gifter badge too. Congrats to you. CJW, thank you. User said Jennifer is calling the kettle black. Yeah, well, Jennifer's using some emotional appeals to emotion fallacies. Funny 3D says, are you MAGA? No, I'm not MAGA. I have no political affiliations whatsoever. Zero. I am just trying to speak logically and objectively. And I find it very interesting that anytime I'm trying to speak logically and objectively, which I do every time I talk about any current event, the only accusations or questions I get are people asking if I'm MAGA, conservative, Republican, or a Trump supporter. Whenever I'm trying to be logical and objective, I've never had anyone accuse me of being a liberal or a Democrat. Never. And I've been doing these lives every day for the last 5 months. I've never had someone accuse me of being a liberal or a Democrat when I'm trying to be logical and objective. What does that say about the liberals and the Democrats? That's my question. Over on YouTube, I'm going to come back to TikTok. Annie said, waxing facts. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ryan Douglas, appreciate you. Said Miami. Yeah. Andy said, oh, yeah. All right. Appreciate you, Andy. So let's see. I'm back on TikTok looking at the comments here. I'm trying to figure out what. My name is Dre, D-R-E. My last name is Baldwin, B-A-L-D-W-I-N. Somebody asked me, what's my name? My name is Dre, D-R-E. My last name is Baldwin. You can find me on X at Dre all day. Or just look my name up. Any app, just look up my name. I'm easy to find. All my profiles are public. I am open to engagement. Sarah said, common sense is finally coming back. A little bit. A little bit. Remember, Trump only gets 4 more years. Then we got to deal with somebody else. So don't get comfortable. A little bit. Old Timer said, list qualifications. Well, here's qualification number 1, that I turned on this camera and started talking. That's my qualification. So Plank said, you're a DEI ballerina. Prove that you're not a DEI ballerina. Now you asked me to prove a negative. Fallacious question. Nice try, though. Pat said, I worked as a teacher in Cerritos, Compton, and Southern Illinois. I've retired. Congrats to you for making it through. Old Timer said, holding a position is different than accomplishment. Maybe. Not really, though. Not really. If I played 3 games for the New York Knicks, I had a position. Does that go as an accomplishment on my resume? Yes, it does. I could say I was on the New York Knicks. So a position and accomplishment can be the same thing. Plank said, did you graduate from college? I'm sure you didn't. I did. I have a 4-year degree with a focus in business, with a 4-year degree in business with a focus in management and marketing from Penn State University. But I don't talk about that because it's not the reason why I'm in a position that I'm in. I am in a position I'm in despite my college education, not because of it. Nothing that got taught on my college campus positioned me to do what I do today. And by the way, the internet wasn't the internet when I was in college anyway. The internet was out, but it wasn't anything like what we have now. So there is no college professor then or now that could prepare you or me to do what I do today. Not one. I learned my skills outside of school, not in school. But I would go to school again. I would just go to more parties, date more girls, and play more basketball. Terry said DEI gives people of color with the skill set and opportunity that they wouldn't get. Yes, I understand that. I understand that that's one of the arguments for DEI. At the same time, even though I agree with you, Terry, I still am not a fan of DEI. I'd rather you just give me an open playing field and let me work my way into the room, even if they don't want to let me in the room. That's just my worldview, Terry. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I agree with what you're saying. My worldview is give me an open playing field and let me work my way in, even if they're trying to keep me out. That's just my mindset. Many people don't think that way. I do. Son of God said, I didn't agree with being promoted through AA, but it was the only way in the 80s. I respect that, son of God. I respect that. I don't have a problem with anybody who took advantage of affirmative action / DEI. If it worked for you, use it. If somebody calls me today and says, Dre, we want to hire you to come speak at our conference and we'll pay you $25,000 and we're hiring you because we got to hire a black guy for our conference. Am I going to take the money? Hell yeah, I'm taking the money. I say, here's where to send the money. I'm going to stay on the phone and I'm going to just see that money went through and we're good. I will take the money. So I'm not against anyone leveraging DEI. If they're using it to help you out, why not take it? I'll take it. If they're giving it to me, I'm taking it. At the same time, if it didn't exist, I will still find a way to be successful. That's the difference. There are a bunch of people who are DEI fans who have come to this conclusion that they wouldn't or couldn't be successful if it wasn't for DEI. I do not agree with that. So if you want to pay me a bunch of money because you got to give money to a black guy for DEI, send me the money. All right, run me my money. At the same time, if DEI went away completely today, I will still be successful. I will be even more successful. Why? Because now I got a reason. Now I will come up with even more motivation to be as successful as I could possibly be and beat all the people who maybe have an advantage over me. As a professional speaker, for example, as a black guy speaking, I had a woman say this to me many years ago. I've told this story before, but I'll tell you again. So about 2018, I was looking for an agent or a manager to manage my speaking business, like to book me for speaking gigs and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of getting booked for speaking gigs, a whole lot of clerical work, like finding leads and emailing and following up and calls and all this stuff. So I wanted somebody to do it for me. So I reached out to this woman. She was a manager. And she had a roster of speakers who she managed. They were mostly women, but I reached out to her anyway and said, I don't know if you even manage men, but I'm reaching out just to see what the possibilities are. And she said, well, Dre, one thing you need to understand about the speaking business is that it is by and for middle-aged white men. That's what she told me. And I knew that. She was 100% correct, and she's still correct to this day. The professional speaking business, the decision makers are mostly middle-aged white men, and the people who get booked are mostly middle-aged white men. Mostly. I'm not saying black people don't speak. I've done plenty of speaking business. And there are people out there who speak full-time who are black men. But the majority of the speakers are middle-aged white men. And I've been at conferences and I've listened to some middle-aged white men speak and they were garbage. I'm like, who booked this guy? This guy is terrible. He is boring. He's not saying anything. His speech is trash. If I gave that speech, I would never get another speaking gig again in my life. So I understand as a black man in certain spaces, I have to be a lot better than some average white guy to get the same opportunity. I am 100% in agreement with that perspective. And I am okay with that being the situation. That's the point that I want you all to get. That I've seen speakers, white dudes in khakis and button-up shirts, and I listened to them talk, and I said, this guy ain't shit. I'm 10 times better than this dude, and we got the same opportunity and making the same amount of money. I'm all right with that. I will get 20 times better than him so I can make more money than him. Now, some of you may say, well, Dre, why you got to be 20 times better than him to get more money than him? And he only got to be average to get what he gets. That ain't my problem. That ain't my business. You never look at the food on another man's plate. All right, I ain't got nothing to do with what he's getting. All right, that ain't my business what he's getting. Well, all I'm concerned with is what do I got to do to beat him? Again, I told you where I come from. I'm an athlete. In the sports world, you got to beat whoever's in front of you, regardless of the situation. You got to beat whoever's in front of you. They put somebody in front of you, you got to beat them. That's all that's going to matter in the end. I'm okay with needing to be 10 times better than somebody else to beat them, as long as at the end of the day, I beat them. period. So for all of you asking, I hope you understand that. So I don't have to keep saying it. Actually, I'm going to keep saying it. I'll probably say that another 30 times. You keep watching my lives, I will say it again, not today, but in the future. This is the world that I come from. This is the way that I think. Everything that I do is based around what I just explained to all of you. So any of you want to work with me directly, all right, this is where I'm coming from. This is where I'm at, and this is where I'm staying. Okay, so I create said, now you have me rewinding in my mind what occupations were performance-based versus DEI. Right, and it depends in the professional world, like high-level professional. So if you're working at McDonald's, then it doesn't matter. If you're driving Uber, it doesn't matter. But now, when you get into professional level, like career stuff, then yes, performance matters a lot. But it's what is the criteria that that company and that current leadership is going by? It's not really about the job itself. It's about the leadership and what they want to do. Because the people who run LA right now, when that mayor leaves and a new mayor comes in, the new mayor might say, all right, we're not doing DEI anymore. It's all about performance. And then another mayor can come in and say, we're going back to DEI. So it depends on who's in charge. Viv said, what are your sources? I like to read and educate myself from articles and studies. Well, everything I'm talking about here, Viv, is not like I'm giving you a research paper. I'm not giving you data, Viv. What I'm talking about is my personal observations of things that are happening. That's what I do in my lives. I talk about things that are happening, current events that most of you know about. And then I go into detail of my observation of why it's happening, what's happening, who's involved, and the parts that most people don't consider. So I am not a researcher. So when I do my material, it's not about research. It's about my observations and my ability to articulate my observations. That's what I do in these labs. So I'm not going into like reading encyclopedias or Wikipedia, or is Wikipedia even a source? No, I don't think so. No, that's not what I'm doing. My source is just looking at life. That's my source, Viv. My source is just looking at what's happening, seeing what's happening, looking at the conversations people are having, engaging in the conversation, seeing what people are saying, understanding where their thinking may be off or their logic is flawed. And then I get on camera like this, and then I explain it to help you all understand it. That's what I do. But I am not a researcher. Research is boring to me. T. Breen said, where are you going to be when this gets banned? YouTube. I'm glad you brought that up. I should have said that at the beginning. By the way, those of y'all watching me on TikTok, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The link is in my bio on TikTok. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, because they will eventually. I'm not going to be able to do this. And I don't know if you're talking about this live, T-Breen, or you're talking about the app itself, TikTok. Because, I heard about TikTok going to court. What is it, next week? Yeah, by Sunday. I think by next week, TikTok might they're talking about they might shut down TikTok. So we'll see. So if TikTok gets banned, I will always be on YouTube. I will still be doing my lives. So subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm live on YouTube over here. So y'all on TikTok, my YouTube camera's right here. Shout out to my people on YouTube watching this. All the lives are replayed on YouTube, so you can watch these on YouTube anytime you want. My YouTube channel is linked in my bio on TikTok, or you just go to YouTube and type in my name. My name is Dre, D-R-E. My last name is Baldwin, B-A-L-D-W-I-N. Sarah said, bring the receipts. We want to know what he got wrong. Yeah, I haven't seen those people. Monica said, people hate logic because not a feeling is facts. Yeah, and also because logic requires thinking. So you're asking people to do work. Work is difficult. T. Breen said, I like watching you. Where are you going to be? So I answered that. YouTube. Everybody heard that? YouTube. I will be on YouTube and also on Rumble. Just in case something happens with YouTube, I'm also on Rumble. Tina said, you're excellent in your field, especially oration and soliloquy. Very counterintelligent style. Well, thank you, Tina. Tina, I like the way you're describing my style. You're good with the words. I like this. Let's see. Danny said, facts don't care about feelings. That's right. Sai said, why do you believe that a career first responder is a DEI hire? I don't think I said that. So Sai, I can't answer that question because I didn't say that. That's what we call a straw man question. Nice try. People try that all the time, but it doesn't work on me because I know how to point out fallacies. Chuck said, you are on point with everything. Love listening to you. Thank you. I appreciate you, Chuck. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. All right, just in case this app, if those of y'all don't know, there's a whole thing right now that TikTok might go away because the U.S. government is trying to fight against them because of who owns it and all that. So we don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it stays around because I like TikTok. But if anything happens to TikTok, I am always going to be on YouTube. I will still be doing these lives with the same schedule. Just go to YouTube. My link is in my bio, or just look up my name, Dre Baldwin, D-R-E-B-A-L-D-W-I-N. Nathan said, so authority is an opinion. No, that's not what I said, Nathan. That's a straw man question. Authority is what you get when you decide to put yourself in a position of authority. Authority is self-appointed. Authority is not something that someone else gives to you. Authority is something you give yourself. J Jeep says she is emotional in her feminine mode, so she has to attack. Well, that tends to happen with women as a general rule. I create said knowledge of etymology of words. Yes, I read into those things. So I read up on the etymology of words so I understand where stuff comes from. Interesting thing about just knowledge in general is that you're willing to go just a level deeper than the surface. You'll know more than most people. Most people don't go beyond the surface of damn near anything, even their own careers, believe it or not. I appreciate that, Brittany. Yes, no political affiliation. I don't know if Donald Trump offers me a check to just do lives and support him. Should I take it? What y'all think? Yes or no? If the Trump administration reaches out to me and says, Dre, we like your lives and we want you to just do a live every day, talking up everything Donald Trump does, should I take the money? Yes or no? What do y'all think? Just put a yes or no in the chat. Should I take Donald Trump's money if they offer me to just support him? Danny said, follow me on Spotify. Yeah, that's what's up. Thank you, Jiminy Slick. Someone said, did vote for who and why? I did a whole live on who to vote for. Find it on YouTube. Funny 3D. I did a whole live on who to vote for and why. And the answer is not Trump nor Kamala. That was not the answer. Viv said, what sources are you using for this DEI conversation? Again, same thing I told you before, Viv. I just observe. I see what's happening. I went and looked into DEI and how it's being implemented in many organizations. I went and looked up the definitions of the actual word diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've done entire videos. You can find them on YouTube where I explained if you did diversity the right way, it would be like this. If you did equity the right way, it would be like this. If you did inclusion the right way, it would be like this. I got a whole video where I explain how DEI is the actual enemy of high performance. I got whole videos on this, Viv. Go to my YouTube channel. Trust me, there's a you can go deep into the Dre Baldwin rabbit hole if you want to, Viv. I got plenty of material. All right, this live is just a what do we call this? It's like an appetizer. All right, I got 20 years of receipts of talking about this kind of stuff. Actually, let me not say 20, really like 10. I got 20 years of content. My first 10 years of content was mostly basketball and mindset that I drew from basketball. Then for 5 years, it was mindset that kind of overlapped into business. And the last 10 years has been a lot of business and current events like this. So overall, 20 years of receipts. So go look me up on YouTube. All my receipts are on YouTube. I've never taken any video down off YouTube. Everything I put on YouTube is still there, at least for now. And eventually, when they set the system up, we're going to take everything we got on YouTube and we're also going to copy it over to Rumble, because I think I trust Rumble more than I trust YouTube as far as the future goes. So we want to just have receipts everywhere. I want to have my receipts all over the place. Jay Jeep said, I don't agree with DEI or reparations. Fair enough. We can't go into the reparations thing here today. That's too long of a topic. Let's see. Roy said, we're on Red Note. What's Red Note? Never heard of it. Sarah said, can I explain about TikTok? Because the government told him. Sarah, what happened is, I might do a whole live on this, but I got to be careful. It might be difficult for me to talk about the possibility of TikTok's issues on TikTok. They might not like me talking about it. But in short, Sarah, the short answer is the government of the United States told them that y'all have to sell the company to someone else. We don't want you all to have your app on our platforms when it's owned by that country that starts with the letter C. That's the government's issue with TikTok. And it's coming to a head. I believe the 19th of this month was the deadline that they either had to sell the company or is going to get shut down in America. That's the current situation. So they're supposed to appear in front of the Supreme Court this week. They meaning TikTok. I didn't even know about that. As a matter of fact, one of my coaching clients told me about it on Friday. I'm surprised that the news had escaped me, but that's what's happening right now with TikTok. So this week is the deadline for TikTok that they allegedly had to do this, or that's going to happen. Hopefully that doesn't happen, because I actually like TikTok. I wasn't messing with TikTok for a long time. I didn't start messing with TikTok till like last summer, honestly. But I found a lot of you found me through TikTok. So I want TikTok to stick around so more of you can find me. But make sure if you're following me on TikTok, make sure you follow me on YouTube just in case. just in case either this app goes away or they kick me off the app. One or the other, either one might happen. All right. So I've been banned on here like 4 or 5 times because I said something that the algorithm didn't like. So be careful. Someone said the Red Note app. I never heard of the Red Note app. So right now I'm not on the Red Note app. I don't know if I'm gonna get on it. Someone said, yes, take it. If Trump offers me the money, take it. All right. If they offer me the money, I will disclose that. That hasn't happened. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't even know if they even do that. But if they do that, if the Trump administration was paying me to do lives to support him, I would let you all know anytime that I talk, like, hey, I am working for the Trump administration. So take that as you will before I get into what I'm saying. Jay Jeep said he will fire me. I might get fired by Trump. Someone said, if you support the policies, then yes. Well, it ain't even so much about supporting the policies. That's not even what I do in these lives. What I do is just explain what's happening and help people understand it in better context. That's really what I do. I just help people understand things in better context. That's all I did here today. I'm talking about the fire department and DEI thing. I'm not really giving you all data or stats about anything. I'm just helping you understand what's happening and why it's happening, because most people only understand things what they see and what they hear on the surface. So I'm just trying to go a few levels deeper so you can get it. And my superpower, for those who don't know, some of you have pointed it out and I appreciate it. My superpower is just my ability to help people understand something that may appear to be complex, but I try to make it simple enough that anybody can get it. So what I tell people, we call it the 5th grader test. Anything that you're explaining to people, you should be able to explain it in such a way that a 5th grader could understand what you're saying. And that's what I try to do. So I take complex subjects and I simplify them and make them easy for anybody to grasp, understand, and also to apply. That's what I do professionally. That's what I do as a coach. That's why I have my company. That's what we do. Simplify things and make them easy for you to apply them to your own life and your business. Appreciate you, JG. You're a new fan. Shout out to my new fans. Sarah said they can't control what's talking. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what everybody's aiming for. Carla said, hopefully Kevin O'Leary can put together a team and a deal to buy it. Oh, yeah. Is he the one trying to buy it? Kevin O'Leary? Actually, I did think I heard somebody saying that. I like Kevin O'Leary. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, and he's Canadian. But a lot of people tend to pin him as a right-wing person, but he's actually in Canada, so he can't even vote. But yeah, if he gets it, I'd be happy with that. I like Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. I'm a fan of his. All right, so with all that said, ladies and gentlemen, said they should. Sabrina, yeah, you're right about that. You're right. Ladies and gentlemen, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. So if you like this one, just be here tomorrow. Topic to be determined. I don't always know what I'm going to talk about. I might talk about TikTok's situation. I got to figure out now how I would have to walk around it a little bit, because again, how much can you say about them on their own app? All right, so I might do the TikTok one, but I might do something else. I saw this morning that the bald-headed kickboxer who got kicked off all social media, he was trending on X today because people are trashing him. I already did a live on him like 2 weeks ago, so maybe I'll talk about him again depending on what happens. But that's where we're at. We'll see. Tomorrow will be a current event. It will be the usual high-level quality game. I'm going to take a subject that may appear complex. I'm going to break it down and make it simple for all you to understand. So if you like this, you like the sound of my voice, you like my approach, you like the way I talk about things, be here tomorrow. If you hated this and you push back and you think I'm wrong and I have misinformation and lies and no facts, then you be here tomorrow too. All right, we need a little bit of both. We want everybody in here. We want this for everybody. It's an open space for everybody. Just come correct, come ready to listen, and come ready to get some game. I will see you all tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern. I go to the bathroom. Work on your game. We out of here. Appreciate y'all on YouTube.